Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is Out of Bounds. It is me, Joe Pisapia, with my two best friends, the Scott Bogman and the Welsh. And it's all of you hanging out here on Twitch. That's right. You can watch us live here on Out of Bounds on Twitch at twitch.tv/fantasypros. We just hit 300 subs. That's right. Which sounds like a lot of food. That sounds like maybe about what I order for my Italian relatives when they come over. Maybe get a free sub card. I don't know, Scott Bogman. But Welsh, I think it's important we're doing the show today because, you know, we have to constantly do the wellness checks on Scott Bogman during this saga, which is the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback situation that continues to go on and on. Welsh, if you wanted to give it a name of like a soap opera or a dramatic TV series, what would you call it?
Ooh, it would be.
I was going to go with 6 Feet Under, which is what Bogman might put himself if the Aaron Rodgers news comes to fruition.
I like that. Mine was going to be How the Ayahuasca Turns. Would be mine.
That's not bad.
Yeah. And by the way, this is an amazing thing. I just want you to understand this. There's a chance that I might be with Bogman live in person when this happens. Bogman's flying into Phoenix in a couple days. We're going to opening day on Thursday. Mm-hmm. He could, in theory, sign when I am physically there. Do you understand the possibilities of content that can happen with that?
I want it to happen during the show. I want the live reaction. Boggs, we love you. We're just taking shots because
sounds like
we can. So how are you holding up over the last couple of days?
Look, I am resigned to the fact that this is happening. So, you know, we can name it whatever. I would call it waiting for failure. If I had to name it, that's probably what I would call it. But I mean, listen, a couple weeks ago when I was on the show and not being delayed in Tampa, when I was on the show, we were, you know, after the show wrapped up, you guys were like, hey, I'll just go ahead and you can do a live reaction when they sign Aaron Rodgers on Twitch. That was 3 weeks ago at this point. It's never going to happen. So I just, I don't know, man. It's going to happen like right before the NFL draft. He's going to sign. I'm going to be super annoyed, and that's going to be my quarterback for the season. And then Mike Tomlin's going to get fired, and we're going to be hitting the reset button in Pittsburgh probably.
The coach killer. I mean, look, we're going to talk more about this. I want to talk about an actual signing because we did have a quarterback signing, and it's Jameis Winston, formerly of the Browns, now a 2-year, $8 million contract to go to the New York Giants. So obviously, this does not prohibit the Giants from taking a quarterback here at the 3 pick. They could easily take a Shedeur Sanders or a Cam Ward, whoever ends up making it to them, or if they want to trade back for a Jackson Dart or something else. But regardless, you imagine Winston's probably going to play at least a little bit. I don't know if Cam Ward and Shedeur are lockdown week 1 starters. Boggs, you are Mr. College Football. So let's talk about this too, because obviously the Giants are still in the quarterback market. I don't think going after a Russell Wilson too, which is not out of the question apparently, because according to Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk, he's still on their radar, which I think after this signing is kind of weird. But what do you make of the Russell Wilson involvement still of the Giants and what this means for Winston's fantasy value going into 2025, along with whoever the rookie quarterback is too? What's your best case scenario when you lay out the plan for the New York Giants front office? Because God knows they could use some help in that regard.
Well, I think that Jameis Winston is signed to be a backup in most cases. Now, he can start if push hit shove, you know, if they don't get Russell Wilson, if they do not get one of those top 2 QBs, if they both go early and they decide to trade back or take a different position or, you know, take a quarterback down the line in the draft. I think that Winston can start in those scenarios. And I think the Giants know that this year is probably going to be a rebuilding one. So he's kind of both scenarios. Like if you sign Russell Wilson, great to have Jameis as a backup, but I think he's proven that he cannot start right now. They gave him the opportunity in Cleveland. Had a good start against Pittsburgh, threw 8 million picks against everybody else. So he just turns the ball over way, way too much. The Lord has not delivered him from pick sixes yet. So I think that he's probably going to be a backup at the end of the day.
Now, as a dude, I think he's a very supportive guy. I think he would actually be a good person from the emotional standpoint.
Great for the locker room, for sure.
Great for the locker room.
Yes.
You know, he would be supportive of the young kid coming in. However, Welsh, is Jameis Winston the quarterback you want your young quarterback under the learning tree learning under?
I think so, 100% now. I know what you're alluding to. You're alluding to
crab legs.
W's, yeah, W's and stepping on tables and all the type of stuff.
Or just maybe the fact that he is, you know, not exactly excelled in his time as a starter completely. I mean, some fun fantasy stats here and there, but in terms of excelling at the quarterback position when you're a, you know, number 1 overall pick and living up to that hype, he didn't. Now, maybe that's something that he could teach the youngins. You know, you sit under the tree, kids, and learn about all the mistakes that I made. But I mean, is he really the guy that you want kind of tutoring that young quarterback in that scenario?
I get what you're saying. I don't really believe Jameis Winston is here to be like, you know, the old what was it, like Aaron Rodgers would never speak. I know it's a different thing, but Aaron Rodgers like didn't want to teach Jordan Love, and there's all these quarterbacks that didn't want to teach and whatnot. I don't think you're bringing Jameis Winston in to like make him a better quarterback. Like, all right, here's how you really need to throw. Here's how you go. But I think what you're doing is you're bringing Jameis Winston in to be a serviceable, you know, backup quarterback if you need to be a starter. But you're teaching him how to be a professional, a guy that has gone through mistakes, a guy that is a proven spoken leader who can command the entire locker room. Whether it's Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, whichever one, they need that out of that quarterback. They need this quarterback to come in. They need them to learn to be a professional. They need them to command the locker room, command the respect of the players around. And then you get like really good coaches in to end up making them better. So like, I think Jameis Winston is in there because he is a big vocal leader. He is a guy that has gone through some rookie mistakes that can kind of push them back through that. I think that's why he's here. And it's also why I think there is zero chance we're getting any of the Russell, that nobody else. Winston is here to maybe play half of a season and then Shedeur comes in, or it'll just be he is a backup for 2 straight years and he will just teach this quarterback how to be a leader, not how to be a quarterback.
I like the idea of Neighbors and Winston for a hot minute too. I mean, that could be fun. We saw Jerry Jeudy. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing not to like there. But Boggs, do you see, let's say Carter drops to the 3rd, and we're going to do this a little later in the show. We're going to talk about, let's say Carter falls in their lap at 3, and they've got to make a choice here. Do they take Shedeur Sanders? Do they play Winston instead, and maybe go after a Russell Wilson too? And maybe that's their thing. Like, let's just get 2 veterans and let's continue to try to patch this thing together. And let's just take the BPA, or maybe it's Travis Hunter. Do you think that is the smart path for Shine and Dable to keep their jobs? Or do you think it's better for them to get involved with a young quarterback and be able to present to ownership, hey, look, we're doing it the right way. We're getting there. I know the Barkley thing was a tough patch last year, but we're moving in the right direction. How do you sell this?
There's no world where I would take Shedeur over Abdul Carter. So if for me, I'm definitely taking Abdul Carter. Okay. I think that decision depends on what happens with Russ. I think if they get Russ, Shedeur is not going to be their guy. Those are the 2 QBs they're planning on. Russell is the starter. Jameis Winston is the backup, right? But
you really think they would do that? You really think with the 3rd pick, with that shot, they would bring in Winston and Russell Wilson and pass on those quarterbacks?
I think so, yes, because the only good one is Cam Ward. I don't believe in Shedeur Sanders really at all. So for me, if they have the same thought process that I have, which who knows, but I think Abdul Carter is a cannot miss prospect that you need to take in the top 5. I don't think Shedeur Sanders is. Now, the quarterbacks all get bumped up because so many teams are QB desperate in the league. So, you know, maybe the best spot is trade back. But I think if Abdul Carter is there, you have to take him. Even with it, I mean, that would give you a rotation of Thibodeau, Burns, and Abdul Carter. That is a dangerous pass rush.
And a great defense. And look, we went back and it was a fun fact. I think we had it last week on the show or the week before, where the same team hasn't won that division 10 years in a row, right? So it's constantly passing around. Now, Welsh, from your point of view there, it seems like you think the right way to go is to draft the young quarterback.
No, I'm not necessarily saying like Shedeur Sanders is the answer. They're going to come to that. But what I'm saying is like this team has been devoid. I mean, they made a bad decision years ago with Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
Well, can you trust that they're going to make a better decision? But you're like, I don't understand buying 2 pseudo backup quarterbacks to be like, oh yeah, we're good, we're golden. Now, maybe you could have a high valuation on another quarterback. Maybe you could trade back up into somewhere into the first round and go dart, or maybe there's a quarterback they like a little bit later. I see that because then you get this world-class defender to build your organization around. But I'm just not sure that they're there. This team seems really far off. You've also seen the relationship stuff with Shador and Malik Neighbors. And I think you want a franchise quarterback. And I don't think having Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston will make anybody feel good about being close to having a franchise quarterback, because why would you want both of those guys in with that constructed roster right now? You're far now to the same thing. Like, hey, go get a world-class pass rusher and build around that. I don't think you can go wrong, but we've just seen the history. I guess this is a battle of like what they should do and what is most likely.
Which brings us to spoiler alert, the game we're going to play at the end of the show. So let's put that on the back burner. Yeah. We're going to come to the what you should do, what you're going to do, because we know what teams should do does not always necessarily come to fruition there. Before we get to more Aaron Rodgers, because it's fun, don't forget it's DraftKings season, baby, because March Mania continues to roll on. And if there's one thing's for sure, nothing is for sure. Upsets, buzzer beaters, Cinderella's advancing, top seeds going home early. They got it all right now in that tournament, and there's an upset every day. And of course, there's games every day too. So you got to be on top of that with DraftKings Sportsbook right now. And if you're ready to make your first bet, right now, make your first bet, check out the matchups, and pick a team to win. It's just that simple. So bet on the unexpected with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use the promo code FantasyPros. That's one word, FantasyPros, and new customers get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. So back to Aaron Rodgers, because, well, it's slow news day around here, unless who knows? Maybe we get that news drop at any minute on the show. That's why you'll watch us on the Twitch. And of course, while you subscribe to Fantasy Pros YouTube channel as well, you can always watch us on demand there. Also, video on demand every single time for Out of Bounds and all of our amazing content. Subscribe. We're going to get to 300,000 subscribers this year. I can feel it in my bones. So Mike Florio saying it's a safe bet. Aaron Rodgers signs. Ian Rappaport saying the meeting went, quote, really well, end quote. So let's live in that world for a second. Let's talk about it from a fantasy perspective. You got DK Metcalf. You got George Pickens. We'll see what comes of this running back room as the draft goes on as well. So, Scott Bogman, what's the win total here for the Pittsburgh Steelers? What would you set it at with Aaron Rodgers being the QB?
9. It has to be 9.
9.5. So you would take in the under or the over?
8.5, I would say, and I would take the over. Because that's what Tomlin does. He doesn't have a losing record in his coaching career. It'd be good enough just to get in the playoffs and then lose by 30 to either the Bills or Chiefs. This is what my life has been the last 5 years. It feels like I'm on repeat. So yeah, that's probably exactly what would happen. Is the defense would carry them for a handful of games. Rodgers, whatever the difference is here. Rodgers would, help them win 3 or 4. And they would make the playoffs and then get absolutely rolled in the first round.
Welsh, let's talk about your take on this.
You want to talk about the picture behind me? Is that what you wanted to do? I don't know.
That is a heck of a picture you got behind you. For those listening to Out of Bounds, it's a picture of a Steelers quarterback with number 12 on there. And it sure does look a lot like Aaron Rodgers. So, Welsh, that would mean if they are a 9-win team, Bogman set the number 8.5, then that means they are a game worse than last year with Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback. Do you think that is the case?
Are you asking me to you think that they're worse? Or
let's say that number is 8.5. Are you going over that? And do you think that they are still, it's kind of a two-headed monster. They won 10 games last year. Are they a game worse with Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, I think so. I think you could argue that they could be about the same. I know what we're doing here too. It's like this is what the Steelers do every single year. Like they just sneak into the playoffs. Doesn't matter how good or bad they are. They just get there. They win like 9 games, 10 games, and they just. What's the streak? What's the streak, Bogman?
All of Mike Tomlin's career.
Yeah, his entire career.
Yeah, he's had years where he doesn't make the playoffs, but he hasn't gone below 500 ever.
It does make it tough with like DK and Pickens. Like that's a pretty big, deep threat. Getting more of Jalen Warren can make them more explosive. TJ Watt, we can be healthy. Like, I don't know. Like, that is a really tough one. I'm going to say the under, though. I'm going to say 8 games. I'm going to think Rodgers is old and bad enough that he can tear down. Who could tear down Tomlin's streak? Only but Aaron Rodgers is what I'm going to go with.
Well, I mean, he gets that reputation then, right? Boggs is the coach killer, right? I mean,
of course.
2 years in a row at the end of your career. What does that do to the Rodgers legacy then?
He doesn't care. He wants the money.
I'm not saying he cares. I'm saying in the public eye, what does that do to the Rodgers legacy? I know it's already been tarnished in a lot of people's views, not so much in others, but
honestly,
I had a fun conversation with Pat Fitzmaurice where I said, when you start looking, if Matt Stafford makes it to a Super Bowl this year and wins a Super Bowl, let's just say, do we talk about Matt Stafford in that same realm? Because statistically speaking, he's not as far off from Aaron Rodgers as you might think in some of these total numbers.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a good conversation to have. I don't think you're ever going to convince a Packers fan that Matthew Stafford is better than Aaron Rodgers. So I just don't think that is something that's going to happen. But I don't know. Like, I am so over Aaron Rodgers. I think it's definitely going to happen. It's already annoying me. And my bigger question here, because I think this is already written in stone. I think Aaron Rodgers is signing with the Steelers. But what do you guys think about Pickens getting traded? He's a free agent after this season. I think the Steelers are going to want too much to move him. I think the talent is incredible. Obviously, the head is not screwed on completely tight there. So do you guys think that Pickens is on the Steelers roster come week 1, or do you guys think he's somewhere else gets traded during the draft?
I do, Welsh. I don't know about you, Welsh, but I do. I think he's there. I think that's part of the reason why you went to get DK Metcalf too, is you just like, hey, it puts George Pickens in his place a little bit, but at the same time, it entices Aaron Rodgers to have the weapons that you give him, where you have, legitimate threats there. Now, DK is the 24th wide receiver going off the board right now in the early expert consensus. You can find him over on FantasyPros. George Pickens at 32. That sounds about right to me, Welsh. What do you think of those fantasy ranks for those wide receivers? And to Boggs' point too, does Pickens find himself on the outside looking in?
So I think DK sounds about right. Quarterback could probably, affect maybe a little bit higher. Pickens is a tough one because, I mean, if like Jameis Winston had signed there, you'd be like, oh my God, Winston and Pickens were made for each other, 50-yard plays left and right. I'm kind of torn on the Pickens side because, I'm not to do what I always do, but I am going to do it. What about the idea the 49ers want to get Brandon Ayuk off the roster? There was a Steeler talk before. I don't know if how much the Niners would be interested, but like they don't need to re-sign. I could potentially see an Ayuk and Pickens type of move because that would be a multi-year wide receiver, Ayuk and Metcalf to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They get rid of Pickens. Pickens serves a 1-year gap while the 49ers are just readjusting to getting Pearsall and Jennings up. Horrible disaster for Pickens to go anywhere and be like a number 2 or 3. I guess the answer would be, I don't think the Steelers move George Pickens unless they can get a viable wide receiver back. And I don't think there are enough teams that would make a move on a viable wide receiver. The 49ers couldn't move Brandon Ayuk last year, and they couldn't get Terry McLaurin. They couldn't get Cortland Sutton. So I think the Steelers, they're not going to just get rid of him to get rid of him. I think they would stick and hold unless they can get a wide receiver. And I really think it's like, it might literally be the Brandon Ayuk stuff. But Ayuk might miss half the season, and that would take the Steelers away from doing it. They want to compete. They want to keep going for the Tomlin thing. If they bring in Rodgers, they're doing that because they want to have some type of like, we are going to win this division. We're going to get to the playoffs. They're not going to do that with just DK Metcalf. They have to have another wide receiver. So I think it's going to be pretty tough for Pickens to get moved.
You guys know how many Bane gifs, memes that I've seen of Aaron Rodgers this year? And then now I'm getting the Mighty Ducks Bash Brothers with George Pickens and DK Metcalf, because Metcalf is number 1 in personal fouls, the wide receiver position, since he came in the league. And since DK Metcalf came in the league, George Pickens is number 2 in personal fouls at the wide receiver position.
Ayuk is ranked 35 overall wide receiver. Pickens at 32. Jerry Jeudy's in between at 33, and Rome Odunze is in there. So let's just say everyone is where they are, right? And they stay put. Pickens, Jeudy, Odunze, Ayuk are on the board. Bogman, who are you taking? Pickens, Jeudy, Odunze, or Ayuk? Odunze?
Yes.
Welsh, what about you?
Yeah, probably Odunze. If everything is considered right here, like Odunze. If Ayuk were to somehow be available at the beginning of the season, I think that changes, and especially if he were to be traded. But Odunze would be the pick.
Yeah, make it 3 for 3 on that one too. So we all agree. We're gonna play a little game before we do. Just a quick reminder: our Discord community, it continues to grow, and we want you to be a part of it. So go to fantasypros.com/chat. That's how you join. It's free to join. You can chat with other fans. You get access to exclusive AMAs that wind up on our podcast feed. Right now, we've got Worm and Fitz 5 p.m. Eastern on the first Tuesday of every month, and then Fitz and Bogman 5 p.m. Eastern on the third Tuesday of every month. So if you like Tuesday football talk, well, this is a good place for you. And remember, in season, lots of cool stuff happening on our Discord, more shows, more access to us. And don't forget, we're also going to be finding those chats there in those channels where you can join leagues, where you can mock draft with us, have all kinds of fun. So come get your questions answered and be part of our Fantasy Pros community over right now at fantasypros.com/chat. Join our Discord today. Now, all of this talk about quarterbacks, well, it made me do a little thinking about the worst QB signings of all time. So I was Googling that and some of these options that were out there. And, going through Bleacher Report had a fun article, was going through that. I wanted to know what you thought here. Here's a couple of them that were, I think, worthy of discussion. Elvis Grbac in 2001. That certainly to the Baltimore Ravens did not work out the way the Baltimore Ravens thought. They thought that they would be repeating with that big time defense. They thought all they needed to do is get rid of Trent Dilfer. Well, Elvis Grbac was not exactly the answer. Now, was it? Another one, too. Kerry Collins, Oakland Raiders, at the time the Oakland Raiders at 2004, only to be followed 2 years later by Aaron Brooks in 2006. If you recall that one, remember? He had a nice little run there once upon a time with the Saints. They thought he might be the answer. He was not. Matt Flynn, Seattle Seahawks in 2012, another one that never came to fruition. Why? Because Russell Wilson ended up playing and Matt Flynn's money, well, it got pocketed. So good on Matt Flynn, but unfortunately he was not the answer that the Seahawks were looking to. Brock Osweiler got paid by the Houston Texans in 2016. Also, unfortunately, did not work out. A lot of money on Osweiler, very unproven coming over from the Denver Broncos. Sam Bradford, what could have been if he had only stayed healthy? Well, the Arizona Cardinals in 2018 weren't going to find that out. And then Nick Foles won a Super Bowl, and then the Jacksonville Jaguars said, hey, maybe he's the future for us at quarterback in 2019. He was not. So, Bogman, when you look at these names, Grbac, Collins, Brooks, Flynn, Osweiler, Bradford, Foles, these are some of the more recent bad quarterback signings. For you, is there one that stands out as the worst, or maybe you had another one?
Can I guess?
It's not going to be the one you're guessing.
Okay, because I'm going to guess he's going to say Sam Bradford because Oklahoma Sooner.
Dude, I got to be honest. I forgot that Sam Bradford ever played for the Cardinals. I did not remember that one at all.
He forgot it too. He'd like to forget it probably.
For me, I think the worst one was probably Brock Osweiler. But I'll tell you this. This is the signings, right? This isn't the worst QB decisions, even in the current phase of the game here, because Deshaun Watson is the worst QB decision ever made. I think maybe Russell Wilson of the Broncos is number 2.
I guess, but technically not a free agent signing.
It's not a free agent signing, right? Right, exactly. You could put Jamarcus in terms of decisions, quarterback decisions that were miserable. Kenny Pickett, miserable QB decision, right? But Brock Osweiler getting all that money, so unproven. It was a handful of starts in Denver to get that amount of money to go to, because I think they had to give up a pick to trade him to Jacksonville. Like this is a baseball trade or something. That was how miserable this trade was. So, or this signing was. I think that really set them back. They got lucky when they drafted Deshaun Watson. Obviously, they also got lucky when they traded him. But Brock Osweiler was a miserable signing and was awful with the Texans.
Yeah, Welsh, I got to say, Boggs is 100% right. The Deshaun Watson decision will go down as one of the worst decisions ever made by a franchise. And of course, it was the Cleveland Browns who would make it. And then on top of it, it's one thing to take a shot on a guy like Watson. It's another thing to give him so much guaranteed money, which to me was the most
guaranteed money in NFL history.
I mean, it's such a bad decision. And you have to imagine there were other organizations that must have been in that mix in order for that deal to get done. So clearly they weren't the only ones who were trying to make a bad decision there, but the Cleveland Browns would hold my beer. We're going to be the worst. But when it comes to free agent signing specifically, I'm kind of with Boggs. I feel like the Osweiler one, was the worst of them because it was such a small sample, as Boggs said, and so much money. And then on top of it, you really did set the organization back. Or Matt Flynn didn't really set them back, right? Matt Flynn, they paid him, but Russell Wilson was winning Super Bowls a couple of years later. So
they were just paying the wrong guy. Yeah.
They were just paying the wrong guy. So it didn't hurt them. It was just bad. But what about you, Welsh? Is it Osweiler? Is he the worst QB signing, at least of recent memory?
Yeah, 100%. That was the one that as soon as I looked at this list, I thought of. But you know what sparked in my head? Because I agree, Deshaun Watson, worst move, but it wasn't a free agent move. But it made me think of a free agent move that didn't happen. And I think about the Dolphins. Do you remember passing on Drew Brees for Byron Leftwich? They decided to back out of he wanted to sign there. Drew Brees wanted to go to the Dolphins. They were worried. I think it was about injuries or whatever.
Nick Saban just talked about this on a special.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he had the deal done. It was all done, wrapped up, him and the GM. They sent him to the medical people, and the medical people said, we can't. His shoulder is too messed up.
And they went to Byron Leftwich. So I know this isn't quite what you're saying. The worst signing was Brock Osweiler, but there is this pseudo one that's been in my head of what could have been that the Dolphins had Drew Brees. Think about Drew Brees' career, and they went to Byron Leftwich. That one really jumped out to me. The other thing I just thought about was when you think about in the pantheon, I know this is, we're talking football here, but is Deshaun Watson the worst move in what's the worst sports move? What's the worst sports contract in general? I just don't know if I think of Chris Davis. The baseball throws around big money right now. Basketball has some obvious big ones where these guys disappear, but Deshaun Watson seems very if you think about money
what
for what
it.
Yeah,
well,
but if you think about
Bobby
what
Bonilla, those are the ones that the Bobby Bonilla contract, but it was more not that much the contract is what they decided to do
but
after
that's
the
just
contract.
a goofy whatever. They just had Bobby
They did
Bonilla
that
day.
to help
the stuff came around. He was fine as a player. Deshaun Watson has not only been miserable as a player, he had this stuff coming in. It just got worse when he went to Cleveland. And if that wasn't enough, he has had 2 major injuries.
And if you think of the restrictions of what sports teams can do, baseball, there is no cap. So obviously you can look at $500 million and be like, woof, but there's no cap. Basketball maybe has a play. I don't know if anybody in the comments, I'd be curious, YouTube or live on the Twitch. What is the worst sports contract of all time? And
the Allen Houston contract was a bad one. That turned out to be not great. The Kevin Brown contract in baseball, that's another one I think you could
at that time
throw out there. That was a big contract that did not work out. But it's a good question. I mean, recent years too, Javier Baez comes to mind.
One of the worst. If you're a baseball
guy,
one of the worst of what I mean, probably top 10 worst baseball contract of all time.
Boggs, your basketball guy, Bradley Beal, would that be one of them too?
I don't. Yeah, I mean, Bradley Beal just got hurt. I think there's a million of those examples where you give a guy a bunch of money,
the Jamal Murray's,
right? When he plays, he's good, but he doesn't play that many games. So, I mean, if we're talking about one of those, how about Anthony Rendon? Anthony Rendon's
you could say Russell Wilson.
Ever.
I mean, that's not that long ago.
But all the money the Angels give Josh Hamilton, right?
No, Anthony Rendon trumps it. Rendon is one of the worst sports contracts. Rendon is on the level, actually, of a Jameis, of a Deshaun Watson. It's just Deshaun Watson
without the happy endings. Miserable endings.
Yep. Mic drop.
There you go. Let's move on to our game of the day because there's nowhere to go but there. What they should do and what they will do, which is, when you're talking about the NFL draft, everybody has an opinion. Every fan has an opinion. Every analyst has an opinion. Everybody has an opinion when it comes to the NFL draft. But we're going to play a little game here with the first 4 picks of the draft, what the teams should do, and then our guess of what they will do. So this will be fun. We'll kind of beat this around a little bit. Let's start with the Titans, who have the number 1 overall pick. Welsh, what should they do? What's the pick, and what do you think they will do?
I think it's should and would. I think it's Cam Ward. I think they need a franchise quarterback. I would hearken back to what we said before that, there's a few of these teams that are here a lot, and it is because they don't have the ability to develop talent or spot talent or sign talent or really do anything. They're not talented, and they keep coming back into this spot. So are they in a good position to be able to develop a guy like Cam Ward? But, the Titans, I think you could also argue Abdul Carter would probably be a great play here. But if you're going to have a franchise quarterback, that franchise quarterback is going to help you bring in other offensive potential free agents, develop, Cam Ward seems like the guy. So I think that is what they will do. And I think that is what they should do.
All right, Boggs, you signing off that they're actually going to do what they should do?
Yeah, I think that I would be fine if they took Abdul Carter. I think Abdul Carter is the best player in this draft.
See, that's what I would do, especially if you're an organization that gets things wrong. I would take Carter, but I feel like they're going to take Ward.
Carter to me is can't miss unless injuries, and he's had them in college. So, there's a little bit of that. But I'm with Welsh. I think Cam Ward is the pick here because you cannot go to Will Levis for another season. You tried it with two different systems. It didn't work in either one. So I think Will Levis is done. I think you have to get a quarterback, and I think it will be Cam Ward. So I wouldn't hate Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter at that pick, but I think they're going to take Cam Ward, and I think that's the right move.
I don't know. If you're an organization that misses, I think you should miss. And if the quarterbacks are not that good, you're just paying because that's the best one there that year. That's not always the best reason either to do something. Look, I don't love Will Levis, but just saying, I like Cam Ward, but Carter to me is the best player in the draft. Browns at number 2. Who will they select, Bogman, and who should they select?
They will select, I think, Shedeur Sanders, because I do not think you can go into a season with Kenny Pickett as your starting quarterback. So I think that is going to be their plan. If I were the Browns, I'd rather sign Russell Wilson and go with Wilson and Pickett for number one, because I think it's the thing to do, but number two, because it's hilarious. Pickett gets out of Pittsburgh because he doesn't want to compete with Justin Fields or Russell Wilson. And now all of a sudden he's back in Cleveland, where the place he didn't want to go the most, and he's still behind Russell Wilson. I think that's hilarious. But I think they'll take Shedeur Sanders. But to me, for this team, I think you need help on both sides. I think Travis Hunter should be the pick. You definitely need wide receiver help. I don't think Jerry Jeudy is as good as people are expecting him to be, unless it's Jameis Winston throwing him the ball. It will not be this year, obviously. And you need help in the defensive secondary as well. So I think they have Travis Hunter pegged as a wideout. I think he's great at either position. I think he's probably a little bit better as a corner, but I think he's going to be an amazing wide receiver as well. Mm-hmm. So let's get a guy that can play on both sides. And this is a franchise that, why would they not let him do it? They're not going to be good this year. They haven't been good in years. Go ahead. Let him do both. Let him go both ways. I think that's fine.
I think they will take Shedeur. I think they should actually take Shedeur, because I think giving Stefanski a choice here, a quarterback, and letting him kind of dictate that evolution would be good. I still think Stefanski is a pretty good coach who's just been put in, I think, untenable situations since he's been head coach of the Cleveland Browns. Yeah. I mean, just really difficult. Welsh, what do you think? Browns, what should they do and what will they do?
I think they should take Abdul Carter. I think you should take that. Also put him on the other side of Garrett. I mean, it's terrifying. One of the most disgusting things on the planet. Build around your defense, have a subpar offense, which you have. You could maybe be competitive. That division too, by the way. I mean, I'm not saying it's open, but like, it's a little bit more open. Steelers are a little bit down there. We'll see obviously where the Bengals are. Ravens run away with it. I think they will take Travis Hunter. I think shiny new toys. I think it plays well. I would just love for him to be like anywhere else. I don't want Kenny Pickett throwing to him, but I think there'd be some positive juice for him to be like an all-pro corner and play wide receiver. I think wherever he goes, he's going to be a two-way player. I think they will offer him that. And I kind of think that's where they're going to pass on the quarterback, because they are still just blindly, ridiculously, and stupidly committed to Deshaun Watson in all of these ways. And I don't think they'll bring in a franchise-based young quarterback, because if they did, why wouldn't they have just voided the contract? Every 2 months they get a new reason that they can void these contracts, and they're just like, it's all right.
I think we're getting closer. I think we're going to figure that out in the weeks ahead here. We'll find out. All right, let's put the Giants on the clock here. Welsh, what will they select, but what should they select?
I think the Giants will take Shedeur Sanders, and I think they should take Shedeur Sanders. I've kind of held to that. Like, I was going to say, I think if Abdul Carter is there, I think again, like 2-3, these are great spots for it, but I think the Giants need the franchise quarterback. I think there's a lot built around. I think this is the match. This is the match that is designed. Like, I think they think that way. I think they know that way. Winston is the quarterback, the backup who will train Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur, Malik Neighbors relationship They will build around this offense. And then maybe hopefully the rest of the draft for the most part will be, it'll be defense. And then the 7th round, they'll break my heart and take Jimmy Horn Jr. to, for Shador to have another one of his wide receivers out there and not go to the Niners, which some mock drafts have had. But yeah, I think it'll be Shador. And I think that is what they should do. Little caveat, if Abdul Carter's there, like they should consider that.
I think they go with Hunter, or I think they should Carter 100%. If Hunter's there, I think very intriguing. And maybe you consider trading back into the first round. You do have that early second round capital, move back in. Maybe you take a Jackson Dart before somebody else can. I think that's an interesting path for the Giants. Boggs, what do you think they will do, but what do you think they should do, the New York Giants?
I think it's the same as well, but I have a different player. I think it's Travis Hunter. I think if Sanders goes to the Browns, and they will be able to pick between Carter and Hunter. I think Carter is the best player, but if you look at the Giants roster, you have Thibodeau, you have Brian Burns, you have Dexter Lawrence. Like, you're set on the defensive line, I feel like. So you need a corner. Deonte Banks has not panned out at all. You need a wide receiver next to Malik Neighbors. I think Travis Hunter can fill both of the roles for the Browns or the Giants. The Giants in this scenario, but I think he is a perfect fit in this draft for this team. It's just, does he fall 2-3? I think that is the big question here.
The last one we're going to do, the Patriots here. Look, if Carter falls to them, they should take him because he should not still be there. I think he's the best player in the draft. But I think they, probably from the offensive line standpoint, it's smart to just go with the offensive tackle there, keep it easy. Boggs, what do you think there? I mean, it's difficult because the offensive line is so bad, but at the same time, you want to just get it done, take care of business there. It's really hard that if Carter's still on that board somehow at 4, if things shake out where it's right off the bat there where you go Cam Ward, then Shador Sanders, then Travis Hunter, and Carter's there. How do you not take Carter just because, you look at it and you go, well, Will Campbell.
You have to take him. You have to take him. You have to. Yes. I think there is a tier break. I don't even think there's a tier. I don't think the QBs are in this tier, right? I think it's Carter and Hunter 1, 2, and then it's probably Mason Graham in a tier of his own, and then everybody else, right? So like, I just, if you have Abdul Carter at 4, there's no way you don't take him. If Travis Hunter's off the board, he is the best player in this draft. He's out there with one arm whooping people. So he is an incredible edge rusher. And if you're picking this high in the draft, you have to make sure you get those can't miss prospects, like Welsh said before. That's exactly correct. That is the mindset you should have. If everything's equal, unfortunately, in NFL, everything's not equal. Teams draft for position and player need,
and they need
all the time. They need it, right? But okay, that's fine. I'm not trading out of the spot unless I get a first and a second round pick. So someone can come up and get Abdul Carter, but I need a 1 and a 2. So that is how I would handle it if I'm the Patriots. If I need that much and I'm not in love with Abdul Carter, I don't think he's a generational player, then I'll trade out of this spot. But I think you have to take Carter if he's the last one on the board. And really the answer is if Hunter or Carter are on the board, you have to take one of them.
Yeah, Welsh, that's kind of my MO too, even though the offensive line is dreadful for the Patriots. To the earlier points you guys were making, this offseason, the Patriots did do a lot to bolster the defense, right? So theoretically, yeah, the offensive line is where you should go. But man, oh man, if one of those two guys, Hunter or Carter, is still there, how do you not pull the trigger?
Yeah, so I'm going to say I think they should take Abdul Carter. And I'm going to give you a slight caveat.
Okay.
Just thinking Vrabel from the Belichick era and everything like that, they're going to get a king's ransom trade offer from probably the next 8 teams. And I think they end up trading down. I think it could be now. I could see Vrabel, obviously, like you lock in, it's your dog, Abdul Carter, he's your guy. But like they're probably going to get a ridiculous offer, and it could be a multitude of things. I mean, the Raiders could sell the house if they're not, locked into Genty. You could have the Bears. They spend so much around building around the offense. It's a little bit further down at 10, but in a lot of mock drafts, 10 and 11, I'm going to tell you, have a lot of offensive linemen there. The Bears could do it. And also, I'll just throw it out again. The 49ers, there were trade rumors with Ayuk with the Patriots. The 49ers could trade a first. They could trade Ayuk and something else. And then, that could be a move down for if they wanted to take offensive linemen, if they wanted a ransom and they wanted to go offensive line, trading down into that 8 to 12 range, I don't think is out of the realm of possibility. I think they take Carter. You take your best players. But in this scenario, I'm going to say that someone gives them something that they cannot refuse, and they trade down off of that pick.
Well, we have another mock draft show later this week. We'll see where some of these names end up. But we love to hear from you. So if you're watching on YouTube on demand, drop your comments below. Who are your would and should picks for the first 4 teams in the NFL draft? We love to hear from all of you. Subscribe to the channel too, trying to get to 300,000 subscribers. And of course, make sure you find us on Twitch, twitch.tv/FantasyPros. That'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on for the Welsh and the Bogman. I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids. So many picks left to make. So many picks.